Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With us today, we have Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to be with you today.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you. And lots of excitement in the markets this morning.
Oh.
The chief money manager, and that's not Trump yet. I guess behind the scenes, he might be.
He wants to be.
But Powell had a statement because he's up at Jackson Hole, and they're having a big meeting today, and he's giving a big speech. But he said that maybe policy has to have some adjustment. That was his statement, basically. But for weeks now, it's been the anticipation that's been in the news all over. What's he going to do? Trump's for lower interest rates, and Powell's for maintaining rates as they are, so he's for higher interest rates. And all of a sudden, there's going to be adjustment. So I wonder what that'll do to the markets. Well, it was a bit of an explosion because gold has been hovering around $50 increase just on that one word. We need to have some adjustments, which means that maybe he will, lower interest rates. And that's why everybody is happy. Now, there are some investors who know all about how this system works. One is Warren Buffett.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't represent one strong field, but he understands the system, and he knows and anticipates and understands the Federal Reserve. So he's been saving money for months and months and months that he's anticipating what the Fed's going to do. So Buffett just invested $3.9 billion in little money because he believes that the interest rates are going to go down. But for me, interest rates going down is just more anticipation that there's going to be more inflation because people, they love this, but they don't realize what it's going to do to the average person. It's going to cause more inflation, and because they have to print a lot of money to keep interest rates low. And they never talk about the decreased spending. So it's the establishment. And there are some people who say, well, you have to be nimble. This is the way the markets work. Buy and sell. And whoever can outguess the Fed the most gets the most gravy. But there are some who are very close to the Fed. And it's been known for them to leak their information. And there's a lot of anticipation. The whole thing is, ultimately, they don't know what's going to happen because I think when I see these numbers that are skyrocketing and just more and more inflation, that they're just working for the effort to move it toward the crack-up boom. And when they start spending billions and billions of dollars AI, I think, where's all this money comes from? There was an article this morning that said, well, it's not coming from any place. It's all borrowed. So that's part of what happens when the system's out of control. I think this just verifies so much of the opinion of Austrian economists that it's a failed system because they don't know it. It's rigged to have a lot of spending, and the market is out there, and it's whispering, it's shouting, you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to pay for it. And sometimes when I see these things, there's going to be some payment, and that'll come up suddenly. And I think that it's probably not too far off. So that is something that we may hear. There may be news during our program today. Yep. We're broadcasting now, but I don't know exactly what time Powell speaks, but he will. And he might say, yes, we're going to make adjustments. Oh, you are? You're really going to do it? Yes. Words count a whole lot. It's a guessing game on what they really mean. But I think the most discouraging thing about this is Trump. Trump is winning the argument over Powell. Powell was not reserved. He wasn't Austrian. He wasn't hot sound money. But at least he says it's not go too fast. And yet Trump is a cheerleader, and he's a cheerleader for lower interest rates. He's a cheerleader for big business, and AI money is available because interest rates are lower. There's a lot of debt even building because of that, but they need lower interest rates to continue this charade. And so I think I would anticipate in the next couple of weeks, there's going to be a lot of excitement that we might be talking about.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that, Dr. Paul. Well, the next thing we're going to talk about is something even more grim than our economic situation, and that is a new report that's out. Now, there was an Israeli internal database in their intelligence system that was leaked. And if you put that first clip up, this is an Israeli publication, Plus 972. They, together with The Guardian, went through this database and looked through it. And what they found, Dr. Paul, is appalling, to say the least. Israeli Army database suggests that at least 83% of Gaza dead were civilians. Classified intelligence from May reveals Israel believed it had killed some 8,900 militants in its attacks on Gaza, indicating a proportion of civilian slaughter with few parallels in modern warfare, a joint investigation finds. Truly grotesque and horrific. And it does raise a lot of questions, really, I think, and should raise a lot of questions into the post-October 7th Israeli activities, because there are a lot of questions about what happened on October 7th. Our good friend Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone has done some tremendous reporting on what did and did not happen on October 7th. But I think the big question that needs to be asked, especially when you look at this data, Dr. Paul, is when you're killing almost 9 civilians for every 1 militant, the question is this really about a war against Hamas? Or is it, as a lot of people claim, about ethnic cleansing and simply killing every single person in Gaza?
Sometimes I like to include it's a war against ourselves, because it's all going to hurt us when the payment is due. And what I hope for is that it wakes up more people. When will the American people wake up? You say, oh, no, it's just those people running the show, and they keep sending that money. No, the American people elect a Congress, and Congress tolerates it and votes the money or allows the Fed to print the money. So there's a lot of responsibility to go around. And yet what we need is a greater emphasis on understanding of, the principle of natural law. We as individuals can't lie, cheat, steal, or kill. But here we have governments doing this, colluding together. And just think of the list of this. Oh, what a lie. But I keep thinking that there are, and this I think was released by somebody that wouldn't consider themselves Zionists. It's an Israeli source.
It's Israeli source, yeah.
Yeah, and they're telling, why wouldn't this wake up that there's so many good people in Israel and so many good Americans who don't want this, but it seems to be overwhelming. How can we stop all this? Well, if people will stop it, unfortunately, when the market tells them they're going to have to stop it, because we won't be able to continue to send this money. Right now, we're short of weapons because we gave all our weapons away to fight wars in the Middle East and Ukraine, and it's never ending. When the real crunch comes, it's going to be, how did we ever do that? How did we ever get away with it? It was an illusion that we have been, and they're still as wealthy as anybody ever has been, and that nobody can conquer us. I don't think it's a true story. I think there's always an end to this type of financing and war.
The Americans like to think that we're a great country because we're a good country. We're a kind people. We're, essentially a Christian country in that respect. But it really is disheartening and hard to believe that so many, for example, pro-life people who helped elect Donald Trump, when it comes to pro-life of anyone who's more than 3 seconds out of the womb, well, that's out the door. They don't care. Or people overseas that they are being taught by, I don't know, their pastors or someone else, don't really count as humans. Remember, even our own ambassador to Israel, Huckabee, said, Palestinians aren't a people. They're not even a people. Then what are they? I guess it's okay to kill them then. Well, let's look at a couple of more things from this report from 972. The second one now, this is I've already mentioned this. An internal Israeli intelligence database shows this, and it was an investigation from 972 and Local Call. Those are 2 Israeli publications, and of course, The Guardian is a UK publication. Now go to the next one. figures obtained from the database, which records the deaths of militants from Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, contradict by a huge margin the public statements of the Israeli army and government officials about the war, which have generally claimed a 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 ratio of civilian to militant casualties. Instead, the classified data backs up the findings of several studies suggesting Israel's bombardment of Gaza has killed civilians at a rate with few parallels in modern warfare. Now, here's a chart that really brings to home what we're talking about. That black area are the militants, and all that red, that 83%, are civilians. Women, children, infants, unborn children that have been killed. And so what they're saying is essentially that Israel has been lying the entire time about how many civilians they're killing. This database leaked out and showed the truth.
Yes, and it's hard to visualize exactly when and if it comes, the waking up of the people, American citizens, all the way to the people that live in Israel and neighboring countries over there. So, and I think the mastermind who has made this available to the people who will do harm is really the ability to get people to think you cannot say one single word against Israel. And we think something of our First Amendment, and we on quite a few occasions will be pretty strong critics of our own government. So there shouldn't be anything evil and conspiratorial about somebody making criticism. And I understand that there's a lot of Israelis that this is getting to be too much.
Sure.
And that it's hard to predict and say, well, it's winding down. Maybe there'll be a peace treaty, and Trump's doing a good job on bringing people to the peace table. But right now, it's not very optimistic that very soon that there will be agreement here.
As non-interventionists, we understand that we don't really have the ability to tell Israel what to do. But what we do have the ability to do is to tell our own government, stop paying for this, stop robbing us, stop taking the money out of our pockets to do something that we find absolutely abhorrent. And if Trump were able to stop tomorrow with the money and the weapons, the war would have to stop tomorrow as well. So I think we would be more critical of our own government than the Israeli government. They're doing horrible things, but we're the ones paying for it. Which one is morally the worst,
Yeah. And the whole thing is the way we pay for it is a monetary system that is corrupt. It's based on fraud. It's based on debt. It's based on taxing mostly the middle-class people. And there's a limit to it. And that's why, of course, Mises saw this many years ago, that these kind of conditions leads to what he called a crack-up boom. People just give up on the money. And there's people very, very frustrated now because they're told that there is no inflation. And but you talk to the housewives and people have to go back, my goodness, this is, what we'll have to do. So even the numbers, and there's been reports, on the labor statistics that they lie.
Yeah.
And which is only a benefit in the sense that more people will wake up that they just can't believe everything our government tells us. There's very little that we can say, boy, we could take that to the bank. We better listen because they're really leveling with us. And yet we do know a few people here and there in the Congress, the Senate, and even in the administration that are very serious about it. But right now, they're not in the driver's seat. The spenders are in the driver's seat. The interventionists overseas and fighting all these wars, they're still in charge. But as our budget weakens, so will the appetite and the ability to continue this policy.
Absolutely. Couldn't come sooner. Soon enough, I should say. The next thing we're going to cover is the other big war that we're involved in, unfortunately, and continue to be involved in. And if you skip ahead to Zelensky wants Western security guarantees, this is written by our good friend Dave DeCamp over at antiwar.com. And this is this whole struggle. It's incredible because, Dr. Paul, one of the reasons that Russia did go into Ukraine is that they were talking about expanding NATO. That's what finally got Russia to say, look, we've had enough. We didn't like it when you started expanding after the end of the Cold War, and you said you promised that you wouldn't, and you did anyway. But when you continue that expansion now right into Ukraine and our doorstep, this is something we can't tolerate. We view it as an existential threat, so we're going to take military action to stop it. So the impetus was NATO involvement for Ukraine. And now that Russia has essentially won the war, and everyone admits that they're winning the war, certainly, now it comes back up again that they want to send in NATO troops into Ukraine for security guarantees. And people think that the Russians are going to say, oh, well, okay, we won the war, but you can still have NATO troops inside Ukraine. It just makes you wonder what's wrong with the Europeans.
Well, I think this whole mess, the word I wrote down, the sentence is, they're playing with fire.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe they're playing with bombs. And then I thought, could they be playing with nukes?
Yeah, no kidding.
And it's unbelievable what people tolerate and want to, it's not in my backyard. I'm not going to pay it. But it is in their backyard because they're paying for it, and that should wake everybody up. But unfortunately, we have a lot of false information that comes, and what we have to do is, they use these wonderful terms. You're not a humanitarian. You have to do such thing, and you're not a patriotic person. You're just supporting the troops, and they have to police the world. Don't ever say anything that will hurt. But you heard about my suggestion: protect the troops.
Bring them home. Bring them home. Well, let's listen to probably one of the worst NATO secretaries general that we've seen. Certainly among the least clever. Let's put it that way. This is Mark Rutte, a failed Dutch politician who, when the Europeans fail, they always seem to get a promotion. Now he's head of NATO. Why don't we grab our earpieces and listen to what Rutte is talking about when it comes to NATO security guarantees for Ukraine. He really is living in another dimension, Dr. Paul. Let's go ahead and play this clip.
President Trump has made this a priority. Not only breaking the deadlock with Putin, but making clear that the United States will indeed be involved in providing security guarantees for Ukraine. Robust security guarantees will be essential, and this is what we are now working to define. So that when the time comes, for you to enter that bilateral meeting, you have the unmistakable force of Ukraine's friends behind you, ensuring that Russia will uphold any deal and will never ever again attempt to take 1 square kilometer of Ukraine.
So he's acting here as if Ukraine won and they're going to punish Russia, when in fact the opposite is true. I mean, it's just purely delusional, Dr. Paul. And the idea that NATO's not going to put troops in there. They're not, it's just bluster. The whole thing is,
what really bugs me in a disappointment is some of the progress they made after the Cold War ended. There was a little bit of belief that NATO would live up to their promise, the United States would live up to the promises. And then there was, some economic breakthroughs, the sharing of energy and the selling of energy. But if they would have just emphasized that and permitted it, made it legal, I mean, we'd be so far along with this. But now, it's blowing up the bridges and blowing up the oil, the pipelines, and the whole world, all that energy and effort to do such evil. And it's just, it just is so disappointing because it doesn't have to be this way. And I think reasonable people, I still believe that most people are reasonable if they hear the message. And this is why I keep my fingers crossed about the internet and all, because a lot of nonsense goes out on the internet, but there's a lot of good stuff that goes out on the internet trying to reach people and alert people. And it's been useful in many ways, but right now, the prevailing attitude is, well, yes, we're going to stick with it. But I think we can see some breaking in that, the support for Ukraine and even in the Middle East. So let's hope that's true.
Maybe, yeah, let's hope so. But, the whole problem that Trump has is, we've talked about it, everyone talks about it, he listens to the last person he spoke with. So he went to Alaska and had this great meeting with Putin. I believe they both mutually respect each other. They had this great meeting, apparently, according to what they said, and they're going to work together They're going to solve this conflict. And then came Zelensky and the Europeans. They piled into his office. If you've seen that photo, we talked about it. And they were talking to him about, well, we have to have security guarantees for Ukraine. We have to, before we make a deal, we have to have these security guarantees. And Trump said, okay, well, that sounds good. I guess that sounds all right. Not realizing what they mean, not taking on board that they're talking about putting NATO troops into Ukraine against the will of Russia. They somehow think that Russia would accept it. And so this is what happened yesterday. And I think this was a pretty clear signal to both Trump, to the U.S., and to the Europeans when the Russians hit a factory on the very, very western end of Ukraine, near the Hungarian border. And it was actually an American factory, an American-owned factory that manufactures parts for Ukraine's military, specifically the drones that they use. It manufactures parts for it. So it's a legitimate military target, but they somehow probably thought that because it was American-owned, they would get by and not be bombed. Well, the Russians gave them a different story and blew the whole thing up, saying, listen, guys, we're not going to accept you doing this. You can't come in here, can't bring NATO into Ukraine, and we can hit wherever we want. I think it's certainly a message that should be received.
Zelensky walked in, maybe he thought he was the collection agency.
Yeah.
And that he was owed this, that we should just roll over and give him what he wants. And they believe it was justified. But, the whole thing is, he came across as not even a mediocre IRS agent.
Yeah.
He came across with a tone that it's their entitlement to it. That is absolutely bizarre where they come up with it. And nobody got it. The one annoying thing was when they bring him up and they let him have a floor speech at the House of Representatives. He had more time than I ever got.
Yeah. Well, our good friend Larry Johnson put out a piece today, and he quoted a Steve Bryan. And I'll just, if I can read this, Russia's reaction came quickly. If you can find that clip and put it at, because this whole talk about putting NATO troops into Ukraine, Russia probably scratched his head. So here's what Bryan wrote. Russia's reaction came quickly and rejected foreign participation in security guarantees for Ukraine. Speaking about the possibility of foreign troops being deployed on Ukrainian territory, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Moscow has always viewed this as unacceptable. Quote, and I hope they understand that this would be absolutely unacceptable for Russia and for all sensible political forces in Europe, he said. He went on to say that such proposals are a road to nowhere. And I think that's exactly what the Europeans want. They want Ukraine to fight to the last man, just like the neocons here in the U.S.
Yet, comprehending that is very difficult, since it makes so little sense from our viewpoint, and to the sense of most people who have half of a brain.
Yeah,
but they tend to go along with it. But the opposition is overwhelming. In some places, people get shot for it. In some places, even like people in this country, can get punished. If you take the wrong position in our colleges, they have it where they can blackmail them. They say, well, we've given you all this money. You have federal money, so we can tell you what you can teach and what who your speakers are going to be.
Yeah.
So it's the whole system of interventionism and redistribution of wealth with the governments being too strong. And I think that there should, one thing what I'd like to see is a new congressman coming in and you'll have trouble getting them to obey the Constitution completely. But what about just saying, don't ever vote for expanding the size and scope of government. Don't vote for anything unless it's truly going to reduce the size of government. But and they talk a lot, just think in the last year, how much talk there's been in the effort in 6 months, and yet the spending is skyrocketing. And of course, that's why I started the program off by saying, everybody wants lower interest rates. You can print faster. And these are the rules. And as long as the world will take our dollars, we'll do it. But the world is getting a little bit nervous about taking our dollars. And there was a revolt against the dollar in 1971, and major events occurred. But I think the next major event occurring with the dollar will be a lot more serious than what happened in 1971.
Well, let's hope you're right. But I'm going to close out and thank everyone for watching the show. And please, whatever platform you're watching it on, hit that thumbs up and like. And please subscribe to Ron Paul Liberty Report on whatever channel you watch us as well. Over to you, Dr. Paul.
Very good. I want to finish by saying there's one term the founders used, and we should think about and use it. Stay out of entangling alliances. If you want to look for them, you look to the Middle East and Ukraine and so many other places that we've been entangled. We should de-entangleize ourselves and make everything else voluntary, and then the Constitution will be very easy to enforce. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.